What's up, man? Hey, what's up, Max? So sorry. I don't know. My internet is I'm hardwired to the pole, and it's showing that I have a low signal. But we're not gonna waste no time. We're bringing in Congressman Kai Kahele right now. How you doing, sir?
Hey, aloha, Mel. How's it going? I don't know if I see Charlie yet, but I do see you.
Yeah, Charlie. Yeah, Steph. He's sending to Steph right now. He probably won't be jumping on. I'm hoping that you guys can hear and see us. Everybody, please in the comments let me know. Is it okay? I see Kai's Wi-Fi strength or signal strength is max. Mine is down to 2. So I don't know what's going on. Spectrum. The night we have the
Well,
congressman on, it's going
we
to
need
act
some
up, man.
we need some of those broadband dollars to flow to Kauai so we can get some fiber optic lines and get Kauai with some high speed internet.
It appears that it's Facebook because people that are on YouTube are telling me that it's all good, and the people that are on Facebook are telling me that they're having issues. So we're gonna go through it, and then I'll for those of you that are on YouTube, welcome, and we will go ahead and share the YouTube video on Facebook at a later time. I'm not sure what's going on. I unplug, replug. No need here, Mel. Main thing we see that pretty face. Oh, well, look at the congressman though. That's a damn good looking guy.
You look like you have a
Jeez.
shave, Mel. What? You haven't
Anyway,
shaved since New Year's.
I yeah no I actually did shave a couple of times, but it's growing back pretty quick. I'm not sure why. I had a haircut. Should have shaved at the same time.
Right
But
on.
anyway,
Hey,
so
thanks for having
Congress.
me. I really appreciate it. Mahalo.
Well, I tell you, it's an honor to have U.S. representative here with us. I mean, we've been friends for a while, but we're having some problems, some issues here in Hawaii. Some of which you have experienced personally, and that you have about it, voiced out about it on Twitter. So tonight, I really wanted to cover a few things. Number one, obviously, is the school situation here and Corona, Omicron. Also, we can talk a little bit about Red Hill, but I kind of wanted to start off, and we can touch on this very briefly because you did tweet about it. It was about our Safe Travels program about the testing. It's running rampant now, Congressman. It's running around Hawaii on every island. No one's, we had 342 cases today on Kauai, and it's spreading quickly. Many of us have been calling out for a long time about testing everybody pre-travel, everybody, and even testing post-arrival, so we can identify and isolate this virus. Uh, the state has absolutely no intention of doing that. Today, they're saying that we're going to peak in 5 days, which goes against every single other medical expert. But let's get your thoughts on that, on the safe travels, knowing that you travel pretty much, and glad to see you're okay, because you were also tweeted that you had, well, the news said that you had caught
Yep.
COVID. You tested
Yep.
positive.
I
How was
caught
that? How was
COVID.
that?
I caught COVID. I tested positive for COVID on Christmas Eve of all days, right before Christmas. My symptoms started about the 22nd of December. Rapid test positive on the 24th. PCR test came back from clinical labs on the 26th. I was getting some mixed results from some of the free, pop-up COVID tests that were being done, in parking lots in Hilo. So I called Dr. Akiona, and through Dr. Miskovich, we were able to get Premier Medical Group to test myself and our entire team. And those results go to clinical labs, and they came back positive. So my symptoms, I had a head cold, a pretty decent head cold. Didn't have a fever, any loss of taste or anything like that. So after talking to a few of the doctors, seems like Omicron was what I had. Symptoms went away within 2 or 3 days, but interestingly enough, they came back after New Year's, and I was kind of feeling the same thing from about New Year's Day for a couple of days after that. So, experienced real sluggishness, real tired. I don't know if that was a result of Omicron. It sounds like symptoms representative of Omicron, but that's what happened to me. So, of course, we saw Senator Schatz tested positive as well yesterday. He's reported to be asymptomatic. So, we send him our aloha as well. But, I just like Mel, I'm sure you have known so many people in the last few weeks that have gotten COVID and tested positive. So it's really affecting all of our communities. It's affecting our workforce. And, like I said, Omicron didn't swim across the Pacific Ocean, right? It caught an airplane and it came to Hawaii via air travel. I've been a strong proponent for making sure that safe travels was as beefed up as possible. I've also been a strong proponent of air travel and how it rapidly spreads across the world very, very quickly. And I just feel like we're not meeting the moment right now, Mel, when it comes to the international and domestic arrivals into Hawaii. And safe travels is that mechanism that we have. And the way I kind of think about it is, I think 48 governors across the country would absolutely love to be the governor of Hawaii or the governor of Alaska, because you have the unique capability that no other governor has, that 48 governors do not have, to control your borders. And we are just not taking advantage of that. And, that's something that frustrates me. And it's something that I've tried to voice my opinion in, but I'm the same, as everybody else. And we need to be doing better. We should be doing better. And those are tough decisions that need to be made. But, that's we're just not doing it right now, Mel.
Yeah, and we haven't. I mean, when we first started with coronavirus, and then the Delta started to pop up in other parts of the world in our country, we always had a head start. That's, I think, what frustrates me the most. That's what we always had a head start on the rest of the world, because the rest of the world got it before we did, and we have that unique ability to at least test everyone before they come in, and not 72 hours. Maybe the initial variants, but as we got to Delta and now Omicron, obviously 72 hours is not it. And whether or not, and this, Congressman, the variant, this new variant, uh, about half of the people that are in the hospital are vaccinated and are spreading it. So it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated, if you're boosted, unvaccinated. This virus jumps on you, infects you, and you can spread it. So to test only unvaccinated people, to me, we're allowing this virus to come in through the vaccinated and boosted. And that is what
Sure.
I don't
And
understand. Why? Go ahead.
I mean, it's still up for debate whether or not Omicron has really hit Hawaii. And the reason I say that is, even though we're having thousands of cases daily, and we've been experiencing this COVID just spike, right, like the rest of the country, our positivity rates are up in the 20s. And we expect the COVID case counts and the hospitalizations to decrease, over the next 7 to 10 days. The other states are still peaking with Omicron, which means those travelers, those affected travelers, are still and could still be on their way to Hawaii. So while we have 4,000 case counts a day, other states have thousands of case counts more than us, and they all have, and in some cases will be coming to Hawaii, whether it's on a cruise ship or whether it's on an airplane. And so I do believe that, what we have going for us here in Hawaii is we are in an island state, and that if we can control our borders, we can mitigate the pace of this virus, and we can mitigate giving it to the rest of our healthcare workers, our community members. It gives us time to invest in the infrastructure to keep our island safe. And so, one of the things that I strongly think we should be doing is you mentioned testing. I think we should be doing a test on both the pre-departure and the post-departure. I think that should be a molecular test that should test someone, within 24 to 48 hours of departure. And when they arrive, vaccinated or not, we should test them again. I also believe that fully vaccinated should include being boosted, and
Mhm.
that was something that I would, if I could make a suggestion to the governor for safe travels, Mel, I would have a pre-molecular test before you left within a certain period. It has to be the right test. I would make sure safe travels is adjusted to also mean boosted, to mean fully vaccinated. And when you arrive, I will do another molecular test, and we could do that when the passenger arrives, while they're getting their bags, and we can have a molecular test result within 30 minutes. If a person tests positive, they go into a isolation or an incubation location, and in 5 days, whether they're symptomatic or asymptomatic, we do a rapid antigen test, and they're good to go. That's what I would be doing. But at the
I
very
hope
least,
I hope it I hope at some point you can governor's ear, or more specifically our lieutenant governor, because he's supposedly the COVID liaison. But you know, many have tried, Congressman. I mean, we have Dr. Tim Brown from the East West Center, Dr. Lee Altenberg, Dr. Chiba from HIPAM. All of these experts have predicted this pretty much to the T. I mean, I got to tell you, we've been following this for a very long time, and we've had these people on our show. They've shared their numbers, and it's pretty doggone accurate. So today, I know today or maybe even yesterday, this whole new thing came out about we're going to be peaking in 5 to 10 days. I know you just said it, and that's probably what you've been briefed on. But they have not disclosed the data that supports that. Our hospitalizations in the last couple of weeks, almost 200%. Cases are climbing at almost a vertical level. It's going straight up. I don't know, and there's no expert that I know of that can validate that claim that we're going to be peaking. Just said across the country, states are still a big problem, and we typically fall maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks, maybe even 5 weeks behind. So I don't know
sure,
where they're getting this from, that we're going to be
you're
peaking
right.
in 5 days. I don't. There is no data available right now. And the other thing, real quick, and I hate to burn up all the time on this, but
Oh,
the data is another question, and this will be the segue into the schools, because I think it's a great segue. But
right,
we know the data that the state puts out every day is not accurate. My
right.
fear is this: we're on a clubhouse discussion. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Clubhouse, but we'll talk about that later. Um, we had the UHERO economist on the Clubhouse, and he spoke, and he talked about getting Department of Health data that no one else gets, and that's how UHERO does their projections. On that same call was Dr. Lee Altenberg with HIPAM, who's saying we've been trying to get the Department of Health to give us the data so we can do more accurate modeling, and they don't get it. So that's what's happening behind the scenes. But if you look at just reality, today's report showed Kauai had 32 positive cases. We had 342 cases. We had 300 some odd yesterday. We never had 32 cases for a long time. This is fear, is that people look at these numbers. It seems to me, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm an investigator. I look for facts, I look for data. They are trying to convince the people that we are heading towards a peak. But if you look at the real, Kauai is the only county that produces real time data. Real time. There's no delay. Every 24 hours we get released. It's real data. And the state cannot even get that data that we transfer to them via email or however it's done. So I'm not very convinced, and
Right.
this is where I hope you can somehow help us, that the state data that they're using policy decisions are not accurate. And I'm afraid we're making policy, we're making decisions based on faulty data.
Yeah, I mean, the we just need to weather the storm. We just need to get through this surge, this tough time. It'll be, coming down within a week. I don't know that, right? That's what we are hearing from many of our leaders that are in positions to make big decisions, right? And it goes back to, do we believe Omicron has actually hit Hawaii yet? I mean, I really believe that we are going to, no doubt, in the next few weeks, constantly get more visitors coming from high COVID states, visitors from states with the highest levels of Omicron. I said it before, we have a tremendous advantage here in Hawaii. People want to come to Hawaii, and we get an opportunity to attract people all over the world to the beauty of Hawaii. People like to come here for rest and leisure. The disadvantage to that is we attract, the prevalent viruses from all over the world as well. And I feel like, we may be squandering this opportunity to really put a dent in this pandemic. I mean, testing has to be a big part of that. Constant messaging about being boosted, requiring being boosted, I think is critical. I truly believe mandates work, and I think mandating being boosted will allow the state to increase its below 30% boosted rate when comparing it to the amount of people statewide who are fully vaccinated, which is at about 74%. And I think it's not to say that people disagree with mandates. I just think that if it's required, then they'll do it, and that's something that should be done. I think we can not to get off the testing piece, but I really believe that government should be providing the community KN95s or N95 masks, and following policies that are being done in other communities, most notably in Los Angeles, where cloth masks are not allowed or can be worn but must be worn over an N95 or a KN95 mask, is also something that we see in many states being required. That the surgical mask that you most commonly see is just not adequate, and you need a KN95 or an N95, and we should be providing that in our public schools. It's expensive to get N95 masks. It's not cheap, and so we should be, all that American Rescue Plan money and CARES money that we provided to the state, all of those masks should be distributed to school children when they go to school every day. It should be provided to faculty, to teachers, to administrators, and clearly our hospital workers and our healthcare workers. But we don't see that right now, and that's something else that I would implement, at least for the time being.
Yeah, I hope there's a pipeline that you have that we don't to our state administration. I know one of the problems is that the lack of transparency. We hear from the lieutenant governor more often than I like, but we don't hear governor. We really haven't heard. We heard from Mayor Victorino today, and he's talking about maybe doing some restrictions. But this is blowing up, and we missed the boat early on, and now we got to deal with it. But
and kudos to Mayor Victorino, who the governor has given the 4 county mayors the opportunity to make decisions for their island, and Mayor Victorino did exactly that, and he adjusted the vaccine passport on Maui through Maui County to mean boosted means fully vaccinated. I think that is something that our other 3 county mayors should do as well, and I commend Mayor Victorino for doing that. I just posted the other day, BYU Hawaii in Laie at the end of December put out a notice to their faculty and students: fully vaccinated means boosted. And everyone that attends BYU Hawaii, Laie, or who works there must be, if they're eligible, if they're outside that either 5 or 6 month window, must have received their booster shot by February 1st or within 30 days of their eligibility. And I commend BYU Hawaii to do that, to not just protect their students and faculty there, but the Laie community and the North Shore community, that live there. So we are seeing it. We are seeing counties and private institutions not wait for the CDC, not wait for, the State Department of Health guidance, and they're doing it on their own. And, I wish we would have a little bit more of a stronger voice from our elected leaders. And I hate to keep saying that because I'm one of those guys, but I'm not in a position, Mel, that can implement this type of policy.
Yeah.
express my opinion, but I can't implement it. So we do our best, and we
And
do it through platforms like this.
we get a lot of questions coming in. Well, what can Kai do? What can Kai do? And unfortunately, there's very little Kai can do except share concerns from his constituents, which are us. But it's not topics that they haven't heard. I mean, these guys hearing this, and not only from, we call ourselves the village, but it's not just from the village. It's from all the experts that have basically gone ignored, and it's unfortunate. The one last thing on this before we move on to the schools, there is a major reduction in therapeutics, the monoclonal antibody treatments coming to Hawaii. Major. Now, maybe this is something you can help us with, but and the reasoning was that these monoclonals don't work on Omicron, and yet we still have Delta. We still have people that have Delta, and I'm not sure when you got sick if you got treatment. And my brother was able to get the monoclonal because he has MS, so he qualified. But uh, in the last 3 weeks, I think I've maybe referred 4 people that were denied because they don't have the they don't have the medication, and it's been cut off from the federal level because somebody said it doesn't work against Omicron. I think that jury's still out, but you have any information on that? And were you able to participate in the monoclonal? Did you get monoclonals, or did you just
No, no, I did not
you
get
just
monoclonal antibodies. Fortunately for me, Mel, not only was I vaccinated, but I was boosted. I was boosted back in, I think it was October. So, several, maybe 2 months when I got Omicron. But the vaccine, I got sick a little bit, but the vaccine did exactly what it was supposed to do, Mel. It kept me out of the
yeah
hospital. It kept me out of the emergency room and taking a bed that didn't need to be taken. It kept me from not having to take monoclonal antibodies, so that somebody else that might have really needed it could have used it. And that's what I think, because I get a lot of messages on social media about people, almost saying, "See, I told you so. The vaccine doesn't work. You got COVID. What's the point of getting the vaccine?" Well, the vaccine, saved my life and kept me out of the hospital and minimized
yeah
my illness and got me right back out into the community, within the 10-day window. So that's why getting the vaccine is so important. Don't forget, the vaccines only last 4.5, 5 months, right? That's why you get that booster. And frankly, now that I've not only had COVID and have those natural antibodies as a result of having COVID, but have been vaccinated and boosted, we got hybrid immunity now. It's like having super immunity, where you have three
yeah
doses plus COVID. So the theory there is that what we have now will protect you from the next variant if there is another variant. And I think we got to come to the
mhm,
realization that COVID is not going to just disappear, in the next 6 months. It's here to stay, and we need to have a strategic plan for how we deal with COVID and what that new normal looks like. And that's what I think is you know uh, lacking as well. We don't know if this is the end or if this is the new beginning, and it's why I've been a consistent proponent for getting vaccinated and for getting boosted, and in some cases mandating it, because I believe mandates work.
yeah. And so on the monoclonals, hoping that at some point we'll get more stock over here, because I think that's a lot. I just saw a comment that a woman who has got boosted and is sick and not qualifying, and the reason they're not qualifying because 2 months ago, if you got a positive test, they got you the monoclonal because we had sufficient supply, and that has been
Right.
restricted now by the federal government. And I'm not sure why. I really not sure why uh,
Well,
that
let
is
me look
happening.
into that, Mel. Let,
Yeah,
let me let me
please,
look into
please.
that, and I'll get back to you, because there are therapeutics, there are things that the CDC does recommend, that
Mhm.
are approved, and monoclonal antibodies is clearly one of them, um, and there are a few others out there that are recommended as well.
Yeah, because I think, and while the vaccine and the booster does really do a lot, but it also uh, not for everyone, and those people could really benefit from monoclonals. And I don't see why we're getting a restricted supply of that. I really don't, because I mean, even the monoclonals is not very good for you either, but it sure as heck is better than COVID or going to the hospital. So, yeah, if you could check
Yeah,
that, we appreciate it.
yeah, you bet. I mean, I
Now,
think we
now,
know, we all know someone who's passed away from COVID. And our hearts go out to their
Kai,
families.
I tell you right now, we got, just in the last month, I lost three very close friends, and this isn't a pity party for me. I'm just saying, on Kauai now, and as you know, former Mayor Cavallo's daughter is at Queens right now, um, with COVID, 7 months pregnant, waiting for her life. So people that tell me it's only the cold, I have no time for them. But there are things we can do to protect ourselves, but also there are things that the government can do to help us. Part of that is getting the monoclonals back in our hospitals. So, okay, segue, because we're talking about the data reporting. I'm sure you heard this, Congressman. 40 plus schools have not been reporting their cases to the DOH, right? There is a state law. It's not a governor's rule. It's the state HRS statute that every school in Hawaii gotta report their COVID cases every week. Well, yesterday it was uncovered that over 40 schools have not, some as far back as August. Um, these numbers that we are getting from the schools, from the Department of Education, from the parents that are getting these letters, a lot of those cases, many cases, we don't know because it hasn't been reported to the DOH. And again, this goes back to my comment earlier about making decisions, policy decisions that affect kids that may not be accurate. So that's a segue into the school situation, the DOE situation. I just had a message before we went live, about 5 minutes before we went live, from a parent got a letter. Three staff and 16 students tested positive at this one middle school on Kauai. Just today, they got the email on the 14th. That is too many people getting sick in one day. You had an experience that you tweeted about. That's what triggered me to get you to come on, ask you to come on. What are your thoughts about what's going on right now with the Department of Education and the rapid cases? And then the question I really have is, are our students getting a quality education going to a facility that has 30 or 40% of their staff out and maybe 40% of their students out, where classes are being combined, put in a cafeteria with a substitute teacher? I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Are we giving our kids the quality, the expense or at the risk of these kids getting COVID? So I'll give you the screen here, sir.
No, well, you talked about a lot of different things there, Mel. I think, first and foremost, just hats off to the teachers and everybody trying to make it work, right? The administrators, people that are being called into classrooms and cafeterias to watch kids and to take care of them, because I know people are trying their best. They're working hard. But at the same time, there's a lot more that we can be doing in our public school systems. I put out a message earlier this week because I think it was on Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon, we got a message. 600 families, including ours, got a message that our school is closing the next day, and it would be closed for the rest of the week and for all of next week, because there were, I guess, some faculty or students that had gotten COVID, and that was the decision that the administrators decided to make. That is, it's very, very difficult for a parent to be able to find daycare the next day, to call in sick. It's tremendously disruptive, and it's not just happening on the Big Island; it's happening at other schools throughout the state as well. And so, that's something that needs to be addressed, and we should have been preparing for that, throughout the fall as we prepared to bring kids back to school. You have a vaccine opportunity for children, down to at least the age of 5. I mean, our nationally, our vaccination rates for children are really, really low. It's in the teens. My daughters were first in line, 5 and 7 years old, when nationally they were allowed to get their first shot in second week November, which allowed them to get their second shot in the first week of December, because we really wanted our kids to be fully vaccinated before the holidays. Look what happened. Omicron came, and fortunately they were fully vaccinated and protected. But that's something that needs to be addressed. A large amount. I mean, every parent in America wants our schools to be open, but there's a lot of parents out there that do not want their children to get vaccinated if they're eligible. That's their choice. I respect that. We made a choice to get our kids vaccinated. Our kids go to the school with unvaccinated children. It is what it is. But I would encourage families to, do your homework, and sit down and talk to your doctor if necessary, and consider getting your child vaccinated. That's the first thing. The next thing we need to do is make sure that teachers and faculty and students have the right masks when they go to school. And I think having KN95s and N95s masks should be required. I think looking at some type of testing mechanism at schools is important as well. Just like we test travelers coming into Hawaii, the opportunity to test once or twice weekly at school is something that should be considered as well. Proper ventilation in classrooms should be something that should have been addressed. The state received a lot of money from the federal government to do these things, right? To provide proper PPE, to provide proper ventilation in classrooms, to do and continue to do a robust education effort on the importance of vaccines. And so, there's a lot that we should be doing. But the fact of the matter is there's this big push to keep schools open, and we all want our kids in school. Make no mistake. I don't like my daughters at home, distance learning. My 5-year-old was crying within 20 minutes of the first, hour on Wednesday, because she came to the realization that she couldn't go to school for the next 9 days, and she was going to be on Zoom. So, and that's not something people see. And I'm looking at my daughter and I want to start crying, because she's crying. And, we got to get our kids back in school, and that's the best place for them. But we got to make sure it's done safely. And having, half of our staff calling in sick, having the inability to call subs to come in, qualified, educated subs to come in, and we're pulling people out of the office and we're just piecemealing it together, is just not cutting it. And I think there needs to be a reset right now within the DOE. And again, tough decisions have to be made. But that's why we have the Board of Education and the Charter Commission and the Superintendent of Schools and complex area superintendents across this state. That, those are the individuals working together with the Department of Health and Administration to make those decisions. And I just don't think it's happening right now.
I think from early on with COVID, our state really minimized the dangers of this virus. I really do, and it hasn't stopped. The narrative is always, obviously, go get vaccinated, go get boosted, and really you don't have to worry about it. And to some extent that is true, but that is not entirely true because there are breakthrough cases. The fact of the matter is that Omicron is still a very deadly virus.
Yep.
It's still a deadly variant. Any expert that you talk to that is a legitimate expert will tell you that don't think that that Omicron is mild, because it's not. But that's the narrative that has been put out from our state leadership for the last 2 years, and it continues, right? And you give people this false sense of security that it's going to go away. Even this thing about the 5-day peaking. If it's peaking in 5 days, I'm thinking, if I'm not following this stuff like we do, that, oh gosh, we're at the tail end. It's over. Well, it's not over. It's still spreading. Our cases are climbing on Kauai, which means we still got some serious issues. But I think that has been the message from day one, and I think that is part of the problem, that a lot of people have really dropped their guard because they don't see it as being like the Delta, and the amount of people getting sick. And one thing we don't know, and we're finding out slowly, the kidney diseases and the heart issues, the long haul issues that come up from, even if you had a mild case of COVID, mild, that you still at risk of getting some long-term effects. So it's not mild. It's not the cold. It sure as hell ain't the flu.
Mel, 800,000 people, Americans, have died of COVID.
Thank you.
We have lost probably $8 trillion in the globe in the U.S. economy because of COVID and how it has affected our economy. This is a very, very deadly, very serious virus. It is incredible that a vaccine was created in the amount of time that it was, and that there are therapeutics that have been created in the amount of time, and things that would take 3-4 years were done because the a worldwide effort brought the best, smartest minds together, and they created a vaccine. They genetically coded the coronavirus very quickly, came up with a vaccine, did trials on that, and Pfizer and Moderna, was got the FDA emergency use approval to be used, and it has saved thousands and thousands of lives. But there are still, almost 1 million people that have died of COVID. So again, it goes back to, please get vaccinated, please get boosted. Those are the things you can do to protect yourself and your family. And at the same time, we as a state can do things to protect our island community and to protect the people of Hawaii. And I hope our leaders will do that.
I sure hope so. And again, it's very hard to get through to them. One of the things that I've really noticed, and I've talked about this for the last few weeks, that we have heard very little from our elected officials. You're the first one that has actually, honestly, Congressman, and you're not a state representative, but you were the only one that actually said something publicly on Twitter regarding, safe travels and regarding schools. You're the only one. And we have so many of our representatives and senators across the state that have chosen to sit back and watch this happen for whatever reason. I don't know. I can speculate, but it is what it is. And until our representatives can stand up and speak their concerns or share their concerns with our state leadership, the executive leadership, it's very hard for us. It's like we're kicking ourselves in the okole every day. And,
Yep.
and when you watch the cases and across the country, right across the nation, and again we trail the nation by weeks.
Yep.
They are breaking records every day with cases and
Yep.
hospitalizations and deaths, especially pediatric hospitalizations, which is
Yep.
troubling for me because we are going to, God forbid, we're going to end up seeing some kids getting really sick, and all of this can be prevented if we just be smart, and that I think is the.
And like you said, Mel, there's no doubt in my mind, as states across the nation peak with COVID or with Omicron, that the potential of those visitors from those states with the highest levels of Omicron are and could be headed to Hawaii, which again is why a pre-departure molecular test is the most logical to do that, so you can catch that. You got to remember too, these 72-hour windows for tests is probably too far out, because you can have a day and a half incubation period before you test positive. So I think that test is really important. And to speak about testing, testing is expensive. PCR tests can be $150 and antigens $15, but the molecular test is about $50. And so, earlier this week, I joined other members of Congress and my colleagues to introduce legislation to make free at-home testing available for all Americans. And, that's something that I really think will keep our keiki in school safely and at the same time care for our kupuna. And so that's something that we introduced this week. And I know Senator Sanders also introduced a bill to provide N95 masks throughout the nation. And I think that's another good piece of legislation as well. But, we need to follow the science, and, we also need to prepare for potentially other variants. I'm not saying we'll have other variants, but clearly we've had a Delta variant, we've had Omicron. And so, you need to plan for those variants. And, we have an opportunity to do that. And any type of hybrid variants as well.
Yeah, and it's always a concern. I think if you talk to the infectious disease people or the epidemiologists, hundreds and hundreds. Just not long ago, they named the Ihu variant. variant.
Yep.
And everybody freaked out. So I did my research and I found out that the Ihu variant first showed up before Omicron, but it never created an issue. So they never named it until after. So the risk was very low that it would blow up, because if Omicron took over Delta and took, obviously Ihu wasn't even a thought, that it was not going to be a heavy risk for that variant. But they did name it because of that one cluster that they found. But yeah, what's to come? We have an opportunity. I always wondered why. We knew that if we're going to send our kids to school, we need to make sure they're tested. We need to make sure they're, I mean, over and above being vaccinated, but and the masks, right? Because you could send a kid into a
Yep.
classroom with a bad mask, and
Yep.
that's like just sending them into the fire. So I always thought, why wouldn't we have maybe extended the start of school a couple weeks, just a couple weeks, to make sure that we had, at least for those that need it. Not. I mean, some people can afford N95. Some parents will buy them for their kids, but more times than not, the kid's not going to be able to afford an N95, a properly fitted
And
N95.
they should be, they shouldn't have to, Mel.
Exactly.
Congress appropriated
Exactly.
billions of dollars to the American Rescue Plan to do this right now. And that was in March of last year. There should be no reason why we are not providing N95 masks, adults and children sizes, to kids when they show up at school. You show up at school in line, we drop our kids off, you get an N95 mask fitted for keiki, and you use that for the day. Another day you dispose of it, or recycle it, or whatever you do with it, and the next day you get a new one. We should be providing that, Mel. It shouldn't be something that people have to go out and purchase.
Dr. Miskovich was on, and he's the test master, and he talked about ordering masks, N95s in bulk, KN95s in bulk, and if you buy it in large quantities, like in the 100,000 type, which is what we would have to do, 30 cents a piece, 30 cents a piece. So if we go out and buy enough for the kids, then yeah, absolutely, we can. We
And
should.
I'd love to be able to have that manufactured here in Hawaii.
I
mean,
I will tell you,
rather
my
pay
cousin.
a local company to make the N95 mask.
Yeah, my cousin Rick Saunders, who was on earlier. I don't know if he's still on. Rick, if you're on, give me a thumbs up. But he runs the Hungry Hawaiian on Oahu. He finally hooked up with a locally made, local company N95 mask that he sells now out of his shop. What the hell? Yeah, I'll promote it. Hungry Hawaiian, go check them out. It's $2 a mask, but it's locally made. Made
Right.
in Hawaii by local people.
Right.
So I just wanted to shout out to my cousin Rick for doing that, and he just sent that out today. He actually posted it on Facebook. So Hungry Hawaiian on Oahu, go check it out. $2 N95 locally made mask. Cool.
Yeah.
Now,
Anyway, just on the school piece, I think that's really, really important, because we got to get our kids back in school. We got to give teachers and administrators a safe working workplace, and we want kids to be able to be there and learn and not have to affect another school year. And so, we'll see what happens, Mel. We're trying, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, I know a lot of people, especially here in Hawaii, are really upset with our state, as I am. But as part of the clubhouse discussions that I've had with people all over the country, all over the world, this is not unique to Hawaii. This is happening in many states with ARPA funding. A lot of people questioning. At some point, Congressman, is the federal government going to be looking at, and I'm speaking in general, not just Hawaii, although I think we should be audited, but at some point when things settle down, do you think there'll be some ARPA audits going on in the country of how the monies were actually spent? And is that something that comes out of Congress, or is that something that will come out of the administration?
That's a great question, and to have full accountability and transparency for the public resources, there should be accountability. Let me get back to you now. And I mean, I think, definitely as a member of Congress, we can submit requests for information to the different state agencies on how funds were spent and allocated. We know that a lot of money came to the state to be specifically spent on COVID-related mitigation efforts. And so, that's something that we can do. But absolutely, that money should be um, accountable, and the public should know where those funds went. And you know, part of the COVID money, like go back to the classrooms, right, is making sure there's proper ventilation in our classrooms, and I'd like to know how that was achieved, and other things that should have been done as well.
Yeah, I think with the amount of monies that we had, I mean, you heard the Honolulu, they bought the robot dogs, they bought a ton of four wheelers, they bought some pickup trucks. Oh, okay, but I mean, the larger picture, we're talking a lot of money came this way, and yet very little was done for ventilation. If you live in New York or Chicago or some of these places that you cannot open your windows because it's too damn cold, or if you live in the desert and you got to have an air conditioner. In Hawaii, we get the benefit of the natural trades. We get we have so much more opportunity to make a safe classroom, but unfortunately, nothing was done. We didn't touch the ventilation. We our kids never got the masks. We're still struggling with testing, and it's so interesting how we now we're looking back and saying, well, it's almost over, so no sense do this now because we're peaking, and pretty soon it'll be all over, and that's I think where we struggle.
Yeah,
Um,
and you've seen community efforts in our communities pop up. On Hawaii Island, we have Community First. We have Malama Ya Hawaii that has done an incredible job in our community for testing and mass distribution and mobile testing. There's so much that has been done by nonprofits, and but I think our government can do more and should do more. I know there are resources that are still available, and we should be doing that. And especially at our airports and our ports of entry, that all should be dialed in already, right? This is almost a year after those funds were appropriated, and we've had a year to prepare for this. So there should be no reason why we aren't. Of course, we've had at different times several thousand National Guardsmen that have been participating in a COVID joint task force, and they've been doing things all over the state on all kinds of different islands. That's been a hefty bill as well. But there's a lot of stuff that we should be doing in terms of testing and mass being provided to our people in our community. At the end of the day, it's how can we mitigate Omicron throughout the state of Hawaii, and what can we do to keep our kids safe in our schools, and what would that look like, and what type of changes need to be made immediately to achieve that.
you mentioned the National Guard. I did want to say, because I know there was all your troops, many of them. Kauai's success, was a lot of it had to do with the National Guard. Kauai could not have done what they did without the National Guard, and I
Yep.
did want to give them proper for kudos, because number one is with our mayor and Dr. Behrman. I'm talking about early on in the pandemic. They made the decision to treat this very seriously, but county could not have done it without the National Guard with the screenings, the the testing. They're still here doing testings, the quarantine and enforcement. They were awesome. So I just wanted to give a shout
Yep.
out to them, because that was fabulous, and I know you were very close to them. All right, I know time's running out. A few people on here tonight, probably more of you that want to hear about Red Hill. You spoke out
Sure.
loud, and so take it away, my friend. What the hell is going on? What's going on, man? We just want clean water, okay? We just want clean
Ola
water.
ikawai. Ola ikawai.
Exactly,
Bill,
exactly.
I just spent all day back here on Oahu at Red Hill to get the latest update from the commander of the Pacific Fleet, Admiral Paparo. Also spent a little bit of time with the United States Army Pacific Commander, General Flynn, to get the latest update on what was happening. I guess here's basically the latest. The Navy, in coordination with the Department of Health and the EPA, is preparing to remediate the Red Hill well. and they're going to commence that probably in about a week and a half or when they're ready. But their goal is to remediate the Red Hill well and to get whatever oil and petroleum contaminants are in the Red Hill well out through either skimming the surface of the well or actually pumping it out of the well and running it through a series of granular activated charcoal filters, and then discharge that water very carefully into the nearby Halava stream. That sounds a little scary, and I realize it is, taking water out of the Red Hill well and putting it into the Halava stream. But at the end of the day, the EPA's eyes are on this, and the Department of Health's eyes are on this. They're also working with DLNR and the Commission on Water Resource Management, Board of Water Supply. So, that final decision has not been made yet, but that is what they're planning to do, and they need to do that. There's a sense of urgency to do that, to make sure that whatever petroleum plume is in the Red Hill well or aquifer does not spread to other aquifers. So, more to come on that. As far as addressing the emergency order, the Navy, that was the biggest thing that came out of this week's House Armed Services Committee hearing, which actually the Navy had, and Admiral Paparo had ordered last week Friday, which was the compliance of the state's emergency order. And there's a couple important things in there. Ultimately, it requires the defueling of the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility. And so that's in the short term, Mel, that's the latest. There are still there's about a little less than 9,000 total individuals affected by this, both military and civilian. There's thousands of families that are either living in their homes without running water, or living in hotels in Waikiki, or have found some other alternative lodging. And that's been occurring since about the first week in December, and it still continues. And, it's the Navy or the Army is still hesitant to say when homes will be properly flushed and certified safe, and they can go back into their homes and use their water again. So that's the latest as we work through that. But happy to answer any questions on it.
I think the biggest question for me is what happens next? Will the fuel? Where will the fuel storage be? We know it's a pretty vital part of the Mary here, but at some point a decision is going to have to be made where we store this fuel, that the necessary or the needed fuel.
I think
is Red Hill going to be? I don't think it'll be in Red Hill. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to say that Hawaii and the island of Oahu should not bear the full brunt of the military's strategic fuel reserve for the Indo-Pacific region. The Indo-PACOM region is huge. It constitutes 52% of the world's surface, from California to the Indian Ocean. It's a big area of operations. You require fuel for ships and airplanes, and Hawaii is that, and historically has been that geographical point in the Pacific where airplanes and ships come for refueling. At the same time, there are other locations throughout the Pacific that can also serve that role. This facility, as impressive as it was when it was built in 1940, completed in 1943, done under top secret, nobody could talk about it, remained that way till 1995. They probably didn't even know that they were building it right over the Red Hill or the Halava aquifer when they did. I think they realized they were building it over a critical water resource when they were digging for those tanks. But nobody realized how harmful it could be. And 80 years later, it's still there. You would not be able to build this today, Mel, under current federal law and EPA law. The laws governing underground storage tanks have rapidly evolved over the years, and other places have dealt with contaminated water like this. Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, is an example. We've had underground storage tanks in Washington State. They've had to address those, and so we're really at a at a crossroads for the military in terms of operating this facility. That is a strategic asset. It is very important for the military, but not at the expense of our water resource. That is irreplaceable. It is non-negotiable, which is why we as a united congressional delegation and most of the state have urged and almost been outspoken to the Navy to comply with the emergency order. It is a lawful order. Don't challenge it, and do it. So the current order requires the Department of the Navy to provide a report by February 2nd to the Department of Health. They have contracted an independent third party that will be assessing the entire facility to determine when they defuel that facility, that it can be done safely, and to provide that report to the Department of Health to then make any necessary changes at Red Hill, and then commence the defueling of the Red Hill underground facility. There are tanks there, Mel, that have not been looked at in over 40 years. Tanks 3 and 4 have not been touched in 39 years. Tank number 11 was last inspected in 1981. That was 41 years ago. Tank 7 and 8 were last done in 1998. They should have been inspected in 2018. They're 4 years overdue. And so, there are tanks, at least 3 of them, and if not a total of maybe 5 of them, that should not even have fuel in them right now, because we don't know the structural integrity of those tanks, because we haven't inspected them since I was 6 years old, and that's unacceptable. And that's one thing we're gonna need to fix ASAP.
Yeah, I feel for Oahu, and I know a lot of people saying about how you mentioned you couldn't get that bill today, but remember, we're at war. It's not like it was a commercial operation that wanted to put some tanks. I mean, we're at war. We needed those facilities built. I mean, I think it's, and you can almost replace the war with COVID, right? When the war comes, you do some very unconventional things for the right reason at the time. And I sometimes I wish we apply that same type of urgency to the COVID crisis, and not sit back and wait and see what happens. And I think we've fallen into that mode right now, and I'm sick. And unfortunately, a lot of people die. And hopefully, we learn from this. Hopefully, we take some action and we make some changes.
It was heartbreaking, Mel, to and I got a lot of pictures and videos sent to me by parents. On that Monday night, November 29th, when the Department of Health finally said, stop consuming your water in these military housing communities. I was in that community by 9 o'clock that night, walking around, going door to door, passing on my business card, identifying who I was, and just saying, hey, I'm just here because I'd like to get a sample of your water. I'd like to see for myself. Passed out, a ton of business cards throughout different communities. And I started, in the next few days, started to get emails, started to get messages from parents, videos of their children with rashes, crying, stories of them going to Tripler, chemical burns in their mouth, intense stomach pain. Myself and my staff consumed water from the Moana Loa Shopping Center that Sunday night. Nearly positive that all of us felt some effects of consuming that water, and it's totally unacceptable, Mel, and it's something that there will be an investigative report that is coming out very soon. I've consistently said people need to be held accountable. People need to be relieved of their command, and that needs to happen very, very quickly. And then we have to, look at how do you install or instill trust and confidence in our military. Historically, we have a very proud military history in Hawaii. Mel, you and I are both members of the National Guard, right? current and former. So, we have a proud military history in Hawaii, and that trust and confidence in our military, especially our active duty military, and those senior leaders, uh, is something that will need to be rebuilt over time. And this issue is galvanized the community around that. How the Navy handles this moving forward will be really, really important for the future and what role the military has in Hawaii moving forward.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, I'm the former, he's the current. Yeah, I'm the retired one, he's still the current one. Obviously, you can figure that one out. I went through living here on Kauai with PMRF, and I think a lot of our viewers may know this, but we went from a base. There was a time where everything was kept in secret. Base access was closed, the beaches, and then we got to a new commander who felt that the base open for the public, and the access was given back, and you gain that trust, you gain that respect from the community that you're in, right? You're borrowing our community for your need. So a lot has to do with that, and I don't know how you gain your trust back after something like this. But like our state response to COVID, and I've said this forever, it starts with being transparent,
Right.
Congressman. I mean, you have, you've spoken out loud about being transparent about the Red Hill issue, and that's what we ask, right? Just be honest with us.
Right.
Don't sugarcoat it. Don't minimize it. Just tell us what it is and tell us how you're going to help us. And I think that's what many of us feel betrayed as it relates to COVID, and I'm sure as it relates to Red Hill. I see some similarities there. So
And
yeah,
and Red Hill is historically everyone has that um, I guess concept that the Navy, is responsible for Red Hill, and I'll be the first to tell you, and not too many people know this, Mel, but at the top of the food chain for Red Hill is the Defense Logistics Agency, what they call the DLA. The commander of the Pacific Fleet, Admiral Paparo himself, is not in the direct chain of command for Red Hill. So even if he wanted to make changes, it's very difficult for the commander of the Pacific Fleet to make changes. That's, no one's talking about, everyone's kind of lumps in this crisis on the Navy. But the responsibility and accountability and the mismanagement of Red Hill over the years um, uh, needs to also be borne by the DLA, the Defense Logistics Agency, because they are at the top of the organizational chart when it comes to Red Hill. So I just need to throw that out there as well. The Navy's been the big face of this, but really the DLA is also the um, organization within the military that buys the fuel, owns the fuel, and ultimately runs and is responsible for the farm.
well, not an easy fix. That's going to be a bumpy road going forward, and we pray that those residents out there get justice, I guess I should say, and justice meaning clean water, that they can go back home and live in their homes and feel confident that they can drink their water and not get sick. So, well,
Yep.
gosh, we went a little over. I know we started a little late. I had some technical difficulties. I'm not sure what's going on. Can you call Spectrum for me tomorrow and ask them to fix my internet, sir?
All
Hey,
right.
yeah, I'll give you whatever, man. You got the closing thoughts for our viewers. Whatever you want. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, Mel, I just want to say thanks so much for having me on. This it has been another difficult holidays for so many of us. We're just lucky to have our health, to have our families. Um, you know, we need to work really hard to get through this Omicron variant and surge that's happening right now. I think there's things that Mayor Blangiardi has talked about personal responsibility, and I think that's important as well. I also think there's a role for government, um, but at the same time, we all got to take personal responsibility for our families and our communities. But I just want to wish everyone a happy New Year, and I'm hopefully 2022 will be a better year than 2021. It's been a tough start so far in just the first 14 days, but I really appreciate, Mel, the opportunity to be on tonight. And I'm sorry Charlie couldn't join us, but our thoughts and aloha go out to Charlie. Excuse me, yeah, to Charlie and Auntie Steph, and I hope they're doing well. And just want to say mahalo and aloha to everybody.
Awesome, Congressman. Thank you. Like my wife said, "Oh, I'm gonna watch Kai tonight." I said, "Yeah, it's not often you get on Congressman on our Facebook Live. Appreciate you spending us. I know you're a busy guy. Are you here or are you in DC? Where are you at? I hope
No,
you're
I'm
in
on Oahu.
Hawaii.
On Oahu tonight
Oh,
and
thank
headed
God.
back to DC
Okay,
this weekend. So I'm
okay,
going
good.
back
I
to
was
DC
just thinking
for
about
about a
the
weekend.
the thinking about the time difference there, man. Okay. Anyway, again, thank you so much, viewers. Thank you for joining in tonight. Just a couple of things that I want to leave you with, Congressman. One, if you ever get the opportunity to speak with the governor, lieutenant governor, I think our what I don't know if you can see the comments, but what we've been talking about, what the experts been talking about, is just like you said, personal responsibility, absolutely, but this has some part of that. They have to show personal responsibility on the state side, and they can do a better job at that. And then the other thing, the monoclonal antibody uh, treatments, the therapy, would appreciate if you could look into that and see if we could get more doses here in Hawaii. I again, the experts that we talk to that are epidemiologists, infectious disease people, have not ruled out monoclonals for Omicron, and it's not going to harm you. And again, there's still Delta and other forms of this damn thing around. Um, just end real quick. Want to say a special mahalo to Melissa Bolton, who picked me up this morning on Oahu, drove me to my doctor's appointment, and to Patty Kawakami, who picked me up afterwards and drove me to the curbside at Hawaiian Airlines, and with a little bag of goodies. No food, but masks, tests, and all of that stuff. So thank the two of you. The village is strong. I don't think I'll ever have to rent a cab or an Uber again with the village. So thank you guys. Um, Monday night we have Neil Ross. He's the head of the nurses union. Did get a chance to chat or message with the teachers union head, Mr. Osa. I'll go anyway. Osa, the big brother, and he's willing to come on. We'll be scheduling that real soon. You guys, all of you, thanks again. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. We love you guys. God bless. Kai, send our love to the Ohana. Be safe. Travel safe. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Aloha. Ahui ho.